Good morning. How are you doing today, Jeremy?
I'm doing very well. Thanks, Lindsay.
Good, good. Thanks for being here. So for everyone that's attending, my name is Lindsay. I work in marketing for Infinit-I Workforce Solutions. A little fun fact about me, this is my very first webinar to ever host. So if we totally crash and burn, it's my fault. And just forgive me, please. I'm so happy this morning to meet with Jeremy. He's the founder and CEO of DriverReach. DriverReach is a modern recruiting and compliance management system for hiring CDL drivers. So I don't know if you knew this about me, Jeremy, but back in my early days of trucking, I was a recruiter. So I've got lots of experience with those kind of platforms. I never actually got to use DriverReach though. But in going through it, the interface looks amazing and easy to use. It almost looks like a social media platform. It's fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Founder and CEO, as you mentioned, of DriverReach. And honestly, I built DriverReach after having been in the industry for 15 years as an employer of drivers, of CDL drivers. All we did all day long was recruit, qualify, and hire CDL drivers. And I recognized that there was a lot of room for improvement in that process, especially using technology. And so as I built a lot of that functionality for myself, I realized that what I had just built is something that I think would really benefit many in the industry. And so I pivoted from the company that I owned. It was a driver staffing company, and I ended up selling that so that I could focus on DriverReach. So it's been a few years now, and it's been fantastic. I mean, as you know, being in the trucking industry, this is a great industry to be in, and it's one that you build relationships with people that last a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when I was looking through, kind of looking you up and doing a little research on what you guys do, I came across your YouTube page. There's a lot of great information on there about how you guys work. There's some testimonials on there. But one of the things that I loved was you guys did this spoof video.
Yeah.
It was really silly, just kind of explaining how you came up, I guess, with the process and how you streamline it. So in the video, there's four kind of out of touch executives sitting around a conference table talking about their hiring process. And, the boss walks in with just this giant mustache and and a huge stack of papers and slams it on the table. And he says, was that you, by the way? With the
That
mustache?
was me.
Yeah.
Well, incognito, I had a mustache.
I love it. I love it. So they talk about having drivers fill out like paper applications and faxing it back into them and doing all this stuff. And they say the process usually takes like 2 weeks, something like that. But there was a line that you said in that video that said, keep in mind, our goal is to hire more drivers. We need to keep it as simple and as easy as possible for them to do. So that's something that your platform really does well.
Yeah, I mean, helping companies hire drivers faster and more efficiently is really the whole purpose of why DriverReach exists. And that's been a big challenge because there's a lot of components, a lot of facets of the qualification process that can take a long time or take more time than you'd like. And so helping companies, provide companies with tools to help them, streamline that was our goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at your platform, we're talking about increasing efficiency. We're talking about increasing capacity, which is one of the most important things for trucking companies. Through the convenience of automation, getting drivers on the road faster, but with all the tools that they need to get out there. So your tagline is hire better, faster. So how does we're going to talk about the API integration with us, but how does that kind of, how does that help you hire better, faster, having this integration that we're going to discuss?
Well, I think it's the experience that a driver or a candidate has is critical. It's really important to provide the best experience as you can. And when you quoted one of my whatever I said in the video about keep in mind we're trying to hire more drivers and we got to keep it as simple as possible. That's a core concept of we got to make it as easy as possible for the driver. You have to think about the process from their point of view. How do you make it as easy as possible for them? And so certainly starts with the application itself, something that they're going to have to be able to complete, from a smartphone very easily. And then on top of that, they're going to need to be able to communicate with the recruiter, whoever they're going to be working with at the company level, on their terms. That could be via email, could be via text, could be, obviously phone call, and make that as good experience as possible. And then, of course, once that driver's hired and you're onboarding that driver, this is where e-signature and e-document solutions can pay major dividends, as well as the integration with Vertical Alliance and that seamless onboarding training experience. At the end of the day, you want the driver to, in hindsight, look back and say, that was a really good experience, versus sitting in a classroom for 3 or 4 days and feeling like, okay, I filled out 15 different pieces of paper already with all the same information that just seems so unnecessarily redundant. Let's make this really easy for me so I can actually contribute to the job that you hired me for, so I can make you money, so I can make money. So let's, can I go now? So I think that's the idea of really providing the tools that companies need to be able to just maximize the efficiency around that entire process.
Yeah. One of the things we really focused on when I was in recruiting was your first impression of your company to the driver starts from that first phone call, from that first application they fill out. It doesn't start when they show up to orientation.
Oh, sure.
You're setting that expectation way earlier than when they actually get there. And also
much further upstream.
Right. So, and then you've got all the time that you save. So time, I think of as, it's a finite resource, right? So once a time period has passed, you don't get that back. So anything that you can do to accelerate your hiring process, streamline that a little bit, make it easier for you and for your staff, you just get more of that resource.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think what we'll do is move on to your presentation. We'll kind of jump in, and if you want to start with that first slide.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate that. And I don't know if you may know this, Lindsay, but I referenced my previous company, an employer of close to 500 full-time and part-time CDL drivers. And my relationship with Vertical Alliance goes back over 10 years. Actually, I was a customer. One of the partners who's based out of Indiana, I was their first customer. So I've had a relationship with the company for a very long time. I was a customer up until the time that I ended up selling that company. And now obviously, and actually right away we became partners. It took us a little while to get the integration done just because of some of the new updates that you've made to the platform, which I think are amazing. So excited to finally, cross that threshold and now having this seamless integration. We'll certainly touch on that here, but really the focus of this, these handful of slides is really to talk about the fact that we're in you say this all the time and people are abusing it for sure, but this new normal, things are not the same. They're, obviously with COVID, people refer to COVID. There's a BC, there's a before COVID, and now, we're in the aftermath, and we don't know how long things are going to last the way they are now, but we do know that things won't be the same for a very, very long time. And I've often said, necessity is the mother of invention. That's a statement or a quote that usually means because of some sort of dire need, all of a sudden something is built, something's created. I think in this case, necessity isn't the mother of invention, but it's the mother of adoption. Because of COVID, companies have had to work remotely. They've had to still try to function as best they can in that new environment. And in order to do so, they've had to adopt. So necessity being the mother of adoption, they've had to adopt to some new technology. So that's what we're going to talk about, just really embracing modern recruiting technology. And this isn't anything, high tech. This is all stuff that has existed for a long time. Trucking has just been a little bit further behind. So next slide, please. And I'll kind of highlight just, some of what those things are. And the point of bringing this all up is really to highlight the fact that you can still thrive in this environment. And to do so and how to do so will be kind of what we target with the 4 different kind of components to technology. So next slide. So we're going to focus on an ATS, right? An applicant tracking system. We'll talk about CRM, and notice it's not customer relationship management, which is what traditional CRM stands for. We're calling this is candidate relationship management. It's all the same from a functionality standpoint, but I think too many times people think, oh, CRM, that's for sales. And the reality is recruiting is sales. It's the same process. You're following a process. You're trying to take a candidate, a prospect, and hire them and convert them into an employee or a contractor. And then we're going to talk about e-sign and e-document management solution, and then as well as the onboarding and training through our integration. So let's.
While we're on that topic about onboarding and training integration, I have a couple of poll questions that I wanted to put up.
Perfect.
Just to kind of see where everybody's at and has been impacted by the COVID crisis and everything. So first question, how has your fleet size been impacted by COVID? So I want to know, do you guys have had to reduce your fleet size because, your freight is lower, or your rates have been lowered? Have you had to increase your fleet size? Maybe you haul essential goods and you've had to hire more drivers. You kind of stay in the same, there's been no change. So that's our first question. Second question, have you explored new technologies to adapt to this COVID crisis? So have you looked at a different applicant tracking system? Have you looked at a different communication system to get messages out to your fleet faster? Anything like that. We would like to know, does your company use a tracking system? So do you have any kind of candidate relationship or driver relationship manager that you use to keep up with all your different drivers, all your different applicants and things like that? And does your ATS, do you use an ATS with an integrated online learning system? So if you do use a tracking system, does that integrate currently with your learning management system? So do you have that process streamlined yet? It's kind of just what we're looking for there. So these are very important things that really, it was important. Everybody was looking at it before the coronavirus pandemic. We need to have some kind of tracking system. We need to have some kind of learning management system. Well, now that everyone is social distancing and everybody's having to stay, 6 feet away from each other, or drivers aren't able to get freight back to the terminal like we did, as easily before. Doing that kind of training and having everything integrated makes the process a lot easier now. They're getting communications out to everybody, and it's a lot more important now to have systems that talk to each other than it was before. Okay, so we should have the answers to those pop up. So the first question, so it looks like most people, about half, there's been no change to their fleet size. We've had about a third of the people have had to reduce their fleet size. So we might have some freight that's been slowed down, some rates that are lower, causing us to have to get some drivers out of the fleet. But we need to be thinking about too, now that we're on the recovery, what's that going to look like when we have to start hiring drivers back in? So if normally if you may hire a certain amount of drivers every week, when we start to recover, are you going to need to have the capacity to hire more drivers, bring more drivers in? And how can you make that process easier so your current employees aren't overwhelmed when that happens? So a lot of people, about 60% of people, have been looking at new technologies. So that's fantastic. That's a lot of what we're doing here, is we're just exploring ways to use technology to make our processes easier, make it simple and more efficient. That's really the main thing we want to do with that. So this is surprising to me. Only about 53% say yes, they use a tracking system to keep up with their applicants, keep up with drivers and things like that. I thought it would be higher than that. Yeah. With the way technology is and the way, especially the way it makes it so much easier to keep up with everything. And, you even get reminders, hey, you haven't talked to this guy in, a couple days. Why don't you give him a call? And then, do you use an applicant tracking system with online learning platforms? So 67% of people said no, they don't. So that's surprising to me too, but that, it's something that you should definitely look into. You can automatically send out, videos to drivers before they even come up to orientation. So you can say, hey, we need you to watch these videos before you even get here. So it can really give you even more time because you can reduce your amount of orientation time. So if you have a 3-day orientation, you can take that down to some companies we've had take it down to even 1 day. So it gives their drivers back more time on the road and more miles. So, okay, those are very interesting questions. Thank you everybody for answering those. All right, Jeremy, you can go on.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lindsay. And that's real helpful information for for purposes of the rest of the slides. So I think these 4 components here, the ATS, CRM, and so on. These are components that that exist inside of DriverReach's platform. But that's not even the reason why I'm bringing those up. It's really something that this is going to help manage everything that you need to manage from a recruiting, qualifying, hiring, and onboarding situation. So if we can skip to the next slide, I'll hone in on the ATS, just these next couple of slides, just on the applicant tracking system itself. I was surprised as well to see the number of folks on this particular meeting who indicated that they don't have one currently. And I say that because really, I think today and right now, especially, having an ATS is really, it's table stakes. I mean, and especially one that's trucking specific, because there are some companies, especially smaller, some private fleets who might hire a whole bunch of people other than truck drivers, maybe a bunch of warehouse people and stuff like that, that think that, oh, well, I use this other, generic one. And then it's an awful experience for the driver because they've had to jerry rig it in such a way that it just doesn't help them from a DOT compliance standpoint and all the things that you need to do. It actually, it's probably better just to use a paper application, frankly, than to use some of those. But what is encouraging is to see that there are a number of folks that responded to the poll question, indicating that they are recognizing, taking advantage of the opportunity right now to look into different modes of technology to assist them with their processes. And really, I think there's no better time than now. I mean, generally speaking, 2018, some of 19, and I think probably everybody started this year thinking it's going to be a great year, gangbusters, economy's doing well. And then this happened. And when the economy is doing well, usually if you talk to a company about either looking at another ATS or in another solution or considering one, usually you'll hear, I just don't have time. My hair's on fire trying to keep up with everything, which seems counterintuitive when what you're trying to provide them is a solution that helps them so that they have time. So that's, I think now though is a great time for that. So that's encouraging to see that some of the folks have understand that and the value there. So one thing that I'll just add real quick on the ATS side of things, as you can see on the screen, I mean, the whole purpose of it is to allow you to manage all of the drivers, applicants that are coming into your pipeline, and they'll feed directly into the ATS when they're completing that very easy to complete, mobile-friendly driver application. And then again, it's just managing them efficiently through your qualification process with the intent of being able to do everything all within one system and culminating in hopefully a hire within a few days, not weeks. And so if you skip to the next slide, please. This is where, again, just using that one system, keep in mind, this is your system of record. I mean, this is where all of the drivers that you employ, as well as all of the candidates who have applied, and that number, by the way, could grow significantly. The number of drivers that you have in your database, as you continue to advertise in different ways and have drivers bring, referrals and so on, that database is yours, and that will continue to grow. I mean, you spent marketing dollars. Make sure that you are building that database up, and you can continue to communicate with them and so on. And one of the advantages of an ATS as well is you can track what different things you're doing from an advertising spend standpoint, and then make decisions based on that data. If you see that that, we're putting a bunch of money over here with this, job board or this service, and we're just not getting the results. And you can see what those results are in terms of number of applicants who have applied, number of drivers hired, and so on. And then you can see what's working well and what's maybe not working so well, and then adjust accordingly. So those are all some of the things that from an ATS standpoint that really matter. And of course, once you hire that driver, because you've got, through that entire process, you've built that DQ file along the way, right? You've got all of the necessary components, the application, of course, all of the verifications and, drug test results and so on. That is your DQ file. And then now the ability to manage that on an ongoing basis, so long as that driver is employed by you. So those are benefits of an ATS. Let's move on. Next slide, please. And we'll kind of touch on the CRM functionality and why that matters so much. As I shared earlier, CRM is sales, right? Or I should say recruiting is sales, and salespeople, as do recruiters, need to use a CRM system. And you don't want to use something that's separate or not incorporated or integrated into that ATS. You'd want that functionality to coexist. Some of the advantages, as I mentioned, you're building that database of previous of applicants that have come in through your all your ads and links and so on. You want to be able to communicate with those people on an ongoing basis. In some cases, as we know, all of us know this, if you get 10 applicants, you might hire one of them if you're lucky. That's just the way it is for a lot of different reasons. Maybe some of them don't ever respond. They don't call you back. You leave them a message, you text them, and they just ghost you. And that happens. That is a real thing. Some of them are going to be disqualified for whatever reasons. And some of them you might decide you just aren't going to hire. But no matter what, there's value in some of those people, especially the ones that ghost you. Maybe you don't know what's going on, but certainly they've changed their mind for now. But that doesn't mean forever. There's two things we know about those people that applied. They have a CDL and they're interested in working for you. So now that they're in your database, you can communicate with them. You can stay top of mind to them by sending them newsletters, emails, text blasts, those sorts of things. So you get a piece of business that comes open in a certain part of the country. You can do a filter search in this particular radius, and then you can send a message out to hundreds of drivers that you might have in your database that fit that description. And that's going to help you significantly when it comes to the expense associated with marketing and advertising. So if we can skip to the next slide. One of the advantages that you have when doing that, especially when you're really, when the economy is really humming and you're really trying to recruit drivers and hire them, you're able to use that as you can see the emails that you're sending, you can see who's opening them, who's clicking on links in them, and you can use that data as an opportunity to, you can consider some of those candidates as a warm lead, and you can call them, reach out to them. Obviously, they're engaging with your content. That's encouraging. This is the same thing. Again, it's parallel to sales. This is the same sort of thing that we do from a sales standpoint.
Yeah, you can use that data too to see which of your emails are working and which ones are resonating with your drivers. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and what sort of engagement, that they're having with it. Exactly. And the visibility into that lead activity is really important, and that's one of the things that CRM does. Enables you to track all of the communications that you're having, as you mentioned earlier. Follow-up tasks, notifications, reminders, and the whole point of all of that is just to ensure that nobody slips through the cracks. And you're paying to get these people to you, and you're marketing, you're doing the things that you're doing to promote yourself as a company, as an employer of choice for these drivers, and you're growing, and you've got a great culture. You want to make sure that you not only keep those drivers, but you're managing them and cultivating them throughout. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, just being able to reduce your spend by remarketing to that growing database versus spending the same money constantly from an advertising standpoint. In some cases, remarketing to the same people, instead of just doing that through your own, drip marketing and messaging to your own growing database. So let's skip to the next slide, which is where we'll talk about, this is really more of a COVID priority. DriverReach is always had e-signature and e-document management solution, but we really enhanced that significantly as we kind of saw the handwriting on the wall come March when all of this started to happen. It was a priority for us in 2020 to get to it eventually, and we pivoted immediately. And I'm really, really excited about some of the functionality that exists there, because it's so important at the end of the day to be able to, especially when you can't, I mean, there was a time, I think companies and states are continuing to open up more and more, but there was a time just a few weeks ago that most recruiters were working from home, still were tasked to hire drivers. They have to be able to do this completely remotely. And so as a result, again, necessity is the mother of adoption. Companies have had to adopt to using technology. We've actually had the last 3 months in a row have been some of the 3 best months in our company's history because of the demand for these types of solutions, recognizing that they have to embrace, the technology that's available to them now in order to do their jobs far better and more efficiently, especially in a COVID environment. And so the ability to upload your own documents and digitize them in a way that allows you to send them to the driver via email or text, where they can sign those electronically. It'll automatically file back into that driver's record in their documents, and you can create documents from scratch and do that. So that sort of functionality is where we really enhance. And it's really exciting. And again, I'm glad. The silver lining in the whole COVID experience here is that we were able to make just this, it's a game changer, at the end of the day, for companies to embrace this. So that's the whole concept of the e-signing and e-document management solution there, that is available. And if we could skip to the next slide, I think this is where I think this is really kind of puts the cherry on top. And that is that seamless integration that we have with Vertical Alliance, where that user experience, especially not only the driver and what's their experience like, but the recruiter or whoever's managing that process and bringing that driver on board, being able to manage that all within one system, as you described, assigning certain classes, sometimes companies, I know in Vertical Alliance, and one of the reasons why I was such a huge fan from the beginning is I was able to upload, my own material, our own company material, and we had even tests associated with that, and that was all stuff that we did as part of our orientation process. I don't think that I was that ahead of my time, but I mean, we were doing that 10 years ago. So
yeah, it really is kind of a game changer. You get to put your own stuff on there and test out on your own questions and things like that. Yeah, that's great.
Well, and I think another thing that's really important too is between with the API and all that documentation and scores and the results of the test and so on, all of that is visible in both platforms, obviously, and it's important that we allow that information to be seen inside of DriverReach for our mutual customers. One thing in the last bullet point here, I think is important to note. I've never been a fan of fees associated with an integration. I mean, it does take time and resources to create that integration and enable it. But once that's done, it's so scalable. There are plenty of companies out there, sadly, still today, that'll charge you, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for an integration fee. I've never understood that. To me, that is so short-sighted in thinking. And it's so in the way of progress. And so anyway, I'm glad that is not, we certainly don't think that way. And I know you don't as well. So I'm excited that that is there's no charge for that integration for any of our mutual customers. But all in all, this is all game-changing technology. And again, and it's simple. This is not anything that is extremely expensive. And we're very conscientious of that too, because this is a tough time. This is a tough time for every single company out there. There are very few companies that are excluded from the need to really manage cash flow and be conscientious of that. If we could switch to the next slide. So, and just kind of to wrap this up so we can, have some more conversation. I know there's some questions that have come in as well. I think encapsulating all of these, and using these technologies really, and embracing, modern recruiting technologies, really what is going to be the difference in allowing you to thrive in this new normal. What I would suggest is just really, invest just a little bit of time. You can visit our website. It's driverreach.com. You can request a demo. Again, now I think is probably, there's no better time than in the last few years than right now to really take a look at what else is out there. Does this make sense? How easy and how seamless will this integration work with Vertical Alliance? I'd love to be able to show that to you. So you can visit us and request the demo, and we'll show you. So that being said, thank you very much, Lindsay, for allowing me to share some of this insight, and hopefully we can ask some questions.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeremy. Thank you so much. So we do have a question that came in from Michael. He says, good morning, Michael. He says, is this applicable to a passenger carrier, like a motor coach or charter bus, things like that?
Yep, absolutely. In fact, anywhere where first of all, you can even use it for non-CDL. We have a non-CDL application, so it's still relevant. However, anywhere where a commercial driver's license is necessary, we have several motor coach and bus companies. We've got private fleets, for-hire carriers, driver staffing companies, anybody who hires CDL drivers, actually even third-party recruiters who manage that as a service for other companies are customers of ours. So at the end of the day, it's anybody who hires commercial drivers.
Yeah, great. That's great news. The next question is from Anonymous. It says, excuse me, can my recruiters assign safety videos and orientation assignments to drivers who are hired through DriverReach? So I'm assuming after they're hired, can they still?
Oh yeah. It's not purely an onboarding solution. It's of course that's where you're going to do it first. That's the furthest upstream that you're going to be sharing that sort of and utilizing the integration. But on an ongoing basis, again, this is your system of record. These are your drivers. You're managing your existing drivers, and you can assign them directly through DriverReach's interface, or if you already are used to managing that within the Vertical Alliance platform, you certainly can do that as well. It's either way. I think that's the whole idea. Is I think the data is there. The data is shared. So whether you want to manage that a majority of that process inside of the DriverReach interface, or manage that in Vertical Alliance platform is entirely up to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. And we have one more question. I think it says from Anonymous again. It says, my biggest headache is waiting for verifications to come back from previous employers. Can DriverReach simplify that process?
Oh, you've made my day. Well, and the reason why I say that is because, for all of us, that's the biggest X factor. You can get NVR back pretty quickly, generally speaking. Even PSPs are immediate, and but the previous employment verification process is painful, can be, and so one of the byproducts of DriverReach is aside from the fact that we've got great integrated partners with both HireRight, with DAC database, as well as DriverIQ and their database of previous employment history. DriverReach also has a growing database of previous employment history called VOE+. And the reason I bring that up is because oftentimes there are records available for that are already existing. So you're not, this is static information, this historical records, historical information that companies are able to obtain much faster than waiting for the response. And even on the front end, if that data doesn't exist in our database, for example, when a driver hits the submit button to submit an application, previous employment verification requests will go out automatically to those previous employers, because we recognize how important it is to get a head start on that as soon as we can, because that is the process that is the most cumbersome, manual, and time consuming. And so those are some of the things that we've done to really help expedite that process. And as that database grows, and as our partnerships with both DriverIQ and HireRight flourish, even having even more access to growing databases is going to help companies that much more.
Yeah, yeah, and that is so important for the drivers too, so they don't have to, wait a week or 2 weeks or,
everyone wins. I mean, frankly, at the end of the day, the driver wins because they're able to get hired much faster, and that's important for their livelihood. The prospective employer, right, the company that's hiring the driver, is able to hire them faster, so that's a huge win. And even the previous employer, if that data is available in a database, that previous employer otherwise is constantly responding to the same information over and over again.
Right.
And being able to offload that burden and say, look, it's in this database over here, just go get that. That's where it is such an improvement over current processes.
Yeah, and can you imagine too, setting that expectation for the drivers? The recruiter calls up and says, you submitted your application. We already have your verifications back. That's incredible. That's really incredible.
I think it says what we were talking about earlier, the experience and how important that experience is.
Right.
You've just showed that driver how on top of things you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so that's all the questions that we have from our audience. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Jeremy? I think this has been a fantastic conversation.
Not necessarily. I really appreciate it. And again, I'll just kind of reiterate, please, you'll send an email out, I think, to all registrants afterwards. Is that correct?
I will, yes. I have an email that's going to go out. Everyone that attended or everyone that registered will get that. So in that, there's going to be, okay, so don't... I'm going to send out a link to that YouTube video that we talked about.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
You wearing the fake mustache. I guess you have to make sure everybody sees it.
Right. Yeah.
It was so good.
I'm
also going to send out, next week, you guys are doing, DriverReach is doing a webinar that's going to feature one of my coworkers, Craig Hart from Infinit-I Workforce. He's going to be there to talk about the Crash Preventability Determination Program. I had to be very careful getting through that. That's a lot of... It's a very long title, but he's going to be there. So I have the registration link for that. I'm going to go ahead and send it out in the email. So everyone that's here, check out that registration link and register for the DriverReach webinar as well. And I think we actually have one more poll question for everybody. If we don't mind, can we stick that back up? To go along with this poll question, we have at Infinit-I for new customers a 30-day complimentary trial of our learning management system. So it's really a way for you to test out our system with no risk, no obligation whatsoever, increase your communications to your drivers, enhance your safety culture, really keep that safety training on the top of their mind. And you will see, even in just 30 days, you will see behavioral changes. We've had a lot of clients come in and do the 30 days and say, I don't know how we did this before. But it just makes training and everything else so much easier. So if you would like to learn more information from Infinit-I, go ahead and click that yes button for us. We can get you set up and just show you how easy it is. It's amazing. And then if you want more information from DriverReach, we've also got the button there that you can say, yes, I would like you guys to contact me. We need to know how this system works. We need to know how we can make our processes easier. And I'm sure Jeremy and his team would love to reach out and show you guys just how simple it is to use. It's incredible. Coming from a ex-recruiter, I'm telling you, I would have loved to use your system back in the day. It looks amazing.
I appreciate that.
If
I could just add to, it's never been one that's a pushy type of sales, minded. That's not the way our company operates. So
yeah, that just doesn't work in trucking.
Yeah, no, nobody likes that. I mean. Right. You want to help, and if there's a fit, that's great, and if not, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I think it's important. Nobody wants to, get sold something that might not make sense.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So we have one more slide. If you have any questions for Jeremy directly, he's actually given us his email address, his work email address. So if you guys want to contact him directly with any questions, you can. It's jreymer@driverreach.com. And so, yeah, he'll be there to answer any questions for you. And you guys can get in touch with us if you have any questions on our system. And I think, Jeremy, that's all that I have. If you have anything else to add, if not, we'll sign off.
I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun and looking forward to next Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lindsay.
All right. Bye-bye.